Are you asking yourself, like, where are those raw and real people? Where are those raw and real connections, friendships, communities, relationships where there's no room for facades, for playouts, for those childish dynamics, those games, where it's really a space of sovereignty, of being equal, of ownership, of vulnerability, of nakedness, where you are seen and are able to be yourself without having to put up something or to be put in a box or in a ceiling and operate in a specific way that pleases their eyes and their ears and really pleases their projection of who you are. Where are those raw and real people? So in today's video, I wanted to give you an energy update that of some specific energetic themes that you've been feeling or going through, like isolation, this deep, maybe deep loneliness. And I'm going to break it down because it doesn't necessarily have to do that you are necessarily alone physically. You can be with a lot of people, but yet feel lonely and isolated inside. And maybe some sort of heightened anxiety, and bring a different perspective of the concept of social anxiety and break it down from an energetic perspective, because it really might not be what we actually think of social anxiety whatsoever. And I'm going to also speak a little bit into this collective ceiling, because it's quite linked to what this feeling that many of us, like as way showers, as warriors of God, we could be navigating and feeling right now, the sense of isolation, because it's linked to that huge collective unlocking of a ceiling that has been put upon our consciousness, that has been put upon humanity and this earth for such a long time. And we're going through that right now. Before we start, I want to invite you to my next vision quest that is truly for you, for those warriors of God, those ones that are devoted to the light, devoted to expansion, and really it's going to literally be the perfect space to allow the raw, realist, unfiltered version of yourself to come through. This is going to be a very difficult energy to speak into, because it's been so tamed. And really, as I'm speaking into this, it's really symbolized with the dragon energy that's like being chained, projected onto tamed, inverted. But it's really a huge collective wounding. And whatever I'm speaking into here, it's literally going to like bounce back from the macro to the micro. So the collective and the personal. But it's really a huge wounding that has created this protection mechanism and defense mechanism to keep oneself shut, keep oneself playing small, keep oneself from fully expressing her or his truth for the sake of the tribe, for the sake of the community, for the sake of the culture, for the sake of the society, for the sake of the collective paradigm that is dictating how things actually should be. So they've put on that ceiling. And I've done a video, in my latest video, I was decoding energetic ceiling. So definitely recommend you watch that one, because it's going to leak into this. That energetic ceiling that is placed, which is literally a level of consciousness, which is literally a construct of the ego, can be very, very dangerous. And for the individual that has her own sense of self-expression, her own flavor and color of self-expression, of truth, is completely dimmed and shut down. And so the individual for such a long time, and this is also like an individual consciousness, but it's leaked through with, an ancestral thing, a collective thing. It has been so tamed and scared out of safety, out of protection, out of shame, to completely show his or her true colors, to show his or her medicine, to show his or her gifts, to show his and her true self. And all of that has been completely shut down. Why? because it's such a strong wounding of being shunned, being outcasted from the tribe, from the society, from the community, being attacked, criticized, and even up to being killed. And where we're going through this could be a personal energy. Whatever we're speaking into can bring up some specific memories or woundings, whether from self or stored within the DNA, or witnessing it within the collective, that whoever is trying to be the voice of God, and what I mean by the voice of God, being the voice of truth, that is outside of the deception, that is outside of lies. Because the demonic energy, the fallen grid, is all based on deception, is all based on facades, is all based on masks and how things should be, what should be said and what should be done in order to be approved of, in order to be okay. And then you have to run with the agenda. You have to run with the narrative of what is being said. Now, I'm not talking politics here. You can break it, as I said, it could be a collective thing, but then bring it down to a small community, a small tribe. There has to be a narrative. There has to be a standard of, how things should operate, what things should look like, what it means for the society to function. And then you have to flow with the narrative. And if you're not, if you're the outcast, if you're the one that's saying, wait a second, no, that's really based on a huge deception. We're faking it. Okay, it's artificial. It's not organic in nature. I want to be raw. I want to be real. I want to be organic. There's something artificial here. There's something that's not genuine. There's something that's fake. So you stand out from this. And it could be that there's been such a strong desire within you to stand out, to stand up, to come out. But know that it's okay, because that huge level of fear and trauma and chaining, like a dragon that's been chained, that's been tamed, that's been abused for expressing oneself, whether through your own personal experience, whether as through your childhood or whatever, or maybe bringing it through your own DNA as a memory or from other parallel lives, experiences and dimensions, all of that, it makes sense that it's like kind of completely locked and have stopped you from coming out. So that's why there could be two scenarios here. Either you have or you are expressing yourself and you're feeling and finding that resistance, or you've been more of a person that's been hiding in the corner unconsciously because of all of that, because of those attacks, because of being shunned and outcasted. Now, this energy we're moving through right now is the one that is really piercing through, like, no more. So you might find yourself that either you're like, actually, I really don't give a shit anymore. You find yourself that sense of isolation, that sense of loneliness, that sense of you're not mingling anymore in context or putting yourself in social situations in context because of that, because you feel lonely and you want to do this or you want to be approved of or this. And you find yourself that you're just like, you know what? You don't give a shit anymore. You're so okay with your own company that you're understanding that this is the new standard that you have for yourself. And the people around you have to meet that standard. And the standard is really that of pure transparency of energy. Pure. Crystal clear. So there's no more facades. And that is where I want to speak about social anxiety. Bring a different perspective, because let's look at it this way. So social anxiety is, we've been, again, through psychological terms, we've put ourselves sometimes in mental boxes and mental ceilings and saying, I am this, I have that. So I have social anxiety. And then it brings you out into a state of like, there's something wrong with you and you got to work through that social anxiety or whatever. Now, if we look at it from that perspective, where you're the outcast, you're the one that sees, feels, senses that this is an entire show that is going on the outside. So you could feel, you could be feeling alienated, but you could really see through the show. You could really see through the BS. And that's why I call you the showstopper. You're the one that is here to stop the show. You're the shadow slayer. You're the one that is here to slay the shadows. You're the pattern disruptor. You're the one that is here to disrupt the patterns. So if you are all of this, now, did you know that you were that? Maybe not all the time. Maybe now you're embracing it more. It all depends how much, what is the state and the space of full ownership and acceptance. But that doesn't matter whether it's conscious or unconscious of the role that you play, that you see through that thing. Are you going to be so comfortable being in that show, being in that community, being in that social context? How is your nervous system, your body, your essence, your energy field going to feel? And what I'm saying is that that could be prior to the understanding or the ownership and owning yourself, owning your space, and owning your role that you are the shadow slayer, the showstopper, the outcast, and all of that. And deep down, there's this belief that there's something wrong with you. Everybody is mingling well together. Everybody is in that same synergy, which is actually they're all in the same story, in the same narrative, in the same box. There must be something wrong with you. So just unconsciously saying these things to yourself, it's sending out a signal and information that you're the one that's wrong. You're the one that needs to get fixed. You're the one that's shy, whatever is said out there. You're the one that's, more of an introvert. You're the one that's all these things. And then you're like, okay, so just think of these things. Wouldn't that create anxiety in your system, anxiety in your space, that the next time you need to go out in a social context where you're able to see and see through all of that BS, your body's going to feel like this. Now, if we were to change that perspective and give it a different energetic perspective, that it's your body, that anxiety is your body signaling that there's a show, there's a facade going on, there's something that is not feeling safe. There's something where the dragon within you, the bird within you, whatever, I'm just giving a symbolism here, has been trapped and chained and is not allowed to fully open up. Because if you do, everybody's going to try to put you back in this cage, put you back in this operating system, put you back in that ceiling. Why? Because they are threatened. They are threatened by the freedom that you bring. They are threatened by God. They are threatened by the divine energy that you emit. Because as I said, being a warrior of God, source God of all creation, being devoted to spirit, is the one that is not operating within any sort of ceiling of deception, of lies, of facade, but is the one that is outside of all of that ceiling, that is pure in nature, raw and real. And so when you are being that full expression, they're getting threatened, right? The ego construct, the the coding, right? The artificial coding that's been there, that is connected to the fallen grid, is threatened. So it's sending out, no, that's not allowed. Come back down, play small, and be a fit, be the same box as everyone else, operating as everyone else. And so if you swap that perspective and you harness and you embrace who you are, then the whole thing about having social anxiety or whatever, or you do not belong, or you're an outcast, or there's something wrong with you, all of that just completely falls away. And what comes through, because this is all sitting as well in the solar plexus, in the sense of identity, also linked to the throat. So allowing yourself to fully express yourself, show yourself, and be seen. And that's a pattern, and that's a wounding that has been going on over and over again. So you might notice that pattern maybe in your childhood, in school, with friends, maybe right now in your relationships, and where there's, the whole betrayal and all of that dynamic playing out. But what is that deepest betrayal? The deepest betrayal is the one of when you are fully being yourself and you're fully allowing yourself to be seen. You're showing yourself, and instead you're completely attacked for showing yourself. And you're shunned, you're taken out of the group, of the community, of the tribe, of whatever it is. Or even worse, being killed. Because what you're doing is by being yourself, by anchoring in your light, by expressing your light, fully being devoted to the light, you're threatening, right? But what you're doing is by doing that, you're not allowing the codes of the artificial codes, or you're not allowing the prison or the chains or that ceiling, the energetic ceiling that they've put themselves in, that construct, you're not letting yourself be in it. So what you're doing is you're opening it up, right? So see it as a kind of a vortex through your light that you're opening up and like breaking, you're literally breaking the construct, the prison that they've put just by being yourself, being in your light and being in the truth of who you are, expressing the truth. Not playing any sort of games, not playing any sort of those small-minded, childish games, but you're really standing strong in the maturity of what is. Open. So they cannot allow that because you've opened that construct just by being that reflection. It's like, no, it's not possible, it's not possible. Now, am I saying that there's some people that will not respond positively to that reflection that you're emitting out? Actually, quite on the contrary, I feel like this is maybe, without being attached, but this is what eventually we want, to be the light and be that reflection, to allow other people an inspiration for them, to allow them to be in their light. Now it's going to be their work, if they want to follow through, if they see that you've opened up a little bit of that window of that expanded data, expanded light, expanded consciousness into their prison grid, that they might get inspired and then they're moving towards you. And now there might be that some might feel something. It's like a seed that got planted, but there might be a lot of narratives, a lot of fears, a lot of woundings, a lot of attachments. And that's where I want to say that your devotion to the light should outgrow your desire for belonging and approval. Literally feel into this, that your devotion to the truth should outgrow your deepest desires of belonging and approval. That is going to be the foundation, the common denominator for everybody. That is going to be the test. That is kind of the energy. It's like, how devoted are we to the light? And that's why I was saying to those people, they might get inspired, but their desire, their devotion to the light might not be bigger than their desire to belong to the tribe and, and kind of play small because they want to be approved of and belong and all of this. There's nothing wrong with that because we've been there, right? We are there in specific, maybe areas or dimensions. Maybe you find that your devotion to the light or to the truth outgrows your approval of, I don't know, like friendships, or belonging to friendships. But maybe in a family dynamic, you find that there's a little bit more work to do there. That's completely okay because it's multidimensional, multi-layered. But eventually, that is the key. Because otherwise, we are unconsciously keeping ourselves in the ceiling of what the tribe, the community, whatever it is, they want to stay exactly as they are, fixated in their own ceiling and not willing to expand and change into something else. And that is what is actually going on. I want to link it to the macro, which is the collective piercing through that we're going through, literally on a grand scale, is that for so long, there's been a huge lock filled with deception, filled with lies, filled with like a complete inversion of reality, a complete inversion, like a mask, like literally. And this is what my husband and I were speaking into yesterday, where he reminded me of this, where, the greatest trick that the devil or the demon has ever done is to make people believe that he does not exist or it does not exist. That is the biggest trick. And that is what is going on. It's like we've been so chained and like trapped in a collective ceiling of like even doubting our own eyes, doubting our own reality, like immense gaslighting, right? It's like you see something that is so corrupt and fake and false and artificial. And it's like, no, this is, that's not true. And so it's so deeply embedded in us. Like we're so much embedded in that collective ceiling that actually when you try to speak about it with other people, you feel the level of defense that comes out of them. It's like as if they're really defending this ceiling, but you're like, why are you defending that so much? It's like they're defending the ceiling because they are in it and they're so attached to that ceiling that they cannot see themselves outside of it. And so the same thing is happening on like this, the earth scale, the humanity scale, that there's been this huge, there's so many different layers of that prison grid and that ceiling, but there's one layer right now. Let's talk about that one that has been literally like a wrap around our eyes, a veil around us as a collective. That's insane. And there's this huge, little by little, right? There's this opening of the tunnel of like, look, there's no much, like, look, there's a little bit of light that's coming through. Let's look into the truth. And pioneers that are standing in that are standing in, anchoring in the light to open up and pierce through that ceiling, pierce through it. And it's also insane, right? Because of the level of truth that is wanting to come through, that is going to shake and threaten. But this is where also the huge wounding and fear of like, is it going to be done? Are those pioneers are going to be killed for doing that? We've witnessed that just in the last few years. Many people being ambassadors of truth around the whole pandemic and the whole thing that we went through. And they got killed for it. So this is a huge, literally wounding that we're going through because people do not want that energetic ceiling to unlock. So they're going to do all they can not to get it unlocked. And that same macro dynamic that is happening in the collective is going through on a micro scale, personally. And that's why I said there could be, this energy is getting us to not fear being outcasted for speaking the truth. But it doesn't mean that it's easy because the pain is real. The woundings are real. So if you're feeling that, like literally like a poking on the wound, because it's a very dormant, ancient wound that we're inside it, that you feel like you could be feeling lonely even in your own relationship if you're with a partner, feeling lonely and isolated from your community, isolated from your friendships, because you're expanding more and more into more of that raw and real version of yourself and piercing through more of those energetic ceilings, those ego constructs, and slaying those shadows within you, that you're bringing out that reflection and they just don't want that. And eventually that stance of the warrior of light, the warrior of God you are, the shadow slayer, the showstopper, the pattern disruptor, is that you see yourself. It's like you literally don't give a shit anymore of being seen. Now, if you are being seen, that's an add-on. It's amazing. Great. It's such a beautiful feeling. But you do not give a shit anymore. It's like you know yourself. You see yourself. You're okay with yourself. Your devotion to the light, your devotion to God, source of all creation, outgrew all desires for belonging and for approval. That's it. So you're standing there. And that's what I'm saying, like, that feeling of isolation is real. And so if you're feeling it, it's completely normal. And I just hope that this transmission, whatever I shared, just kind of gives a bit of that sense of validation or comfort or some sort of different perspective that it's okay. And actually, it's the right path. It's literally the right path. And as much as it feels yucky, it might feel uncomfortable because it's, again, as I said, this very strong, deep feeling of loneliness. Knowing that this time is over. Truly, it is about the journey of, the warrior. It's like this individual journey. But also, it's like individuals standing together, different than each other, but yet supporting the light, supporting the awareness, supporting consciousness and sovereignty. Everybody's standing there as equal. And not really standing together, forgetting the individual, forgetting the one, and instead like supporting and giving power to the whole and to the group, and weaving, like chaining parts of oneself, even clipping parts of one's wings, stopping yourself from flying because you are, blindly following through the group's ideal and the group's desire, which is eventually the group ceiling, which is artificial and fake in nature. And if you're still here till now watching this video, I am confident that my next vision quest actually is for you, because this is really the space and the group that we're calling for the shadow slayers, the showstoppers, the warriors of God to join.